Dennis Machuli.
Good evening. My name is Dennis. My coach. I live at 70 Barnstone Lane in the city, which is the main street in Villas, the street of the Villas. I have two concerns in my question here, I guess. And the first one would be the residents are kind of concerned for the DRA that's in our development. I assume that it was there in the very beginning when the property was platted out by the first builder who went bankrupt. And we're just concerned if it's meeting code. Because as the villas have been built, there's been a lot of dirt pushed around, and the DRA runs on the back side of the far eastern side of the development. And it goes downhill and goes all the way down and goes into a culvert area. Well, as they built these villas, you know, the dirt seems like when you stand up at the top and kind of look down the line where the ditch goes, you know, some property lines are out here, some are kind of in a little bit, and things have been pushed over the edge a little bit. And I'm not saying that it's not proper, but we're just concerned in case we ever have a period of time where we have something like a 50-year flood or a horrendous amount of rain. And if it doesn't function right, then the villas that are at the bottom of the street on the flat where the cul-de-sac is, you know, if the water rose significantly, then there's a possibility that it could flood down there. And all the villas have full basements, and then it could back up into the basements or cause a problem. And also I've noticed I live on the opposite side of the street, and my backyard butts against the city cemetery.
This is what you're going to talk to Gene Russo.
And I noticed when the developer built it, they put a big strip of land down through there that humps up in the air and planted pine trees on it, and that separates the cemetery from the back of the villas. I noticed on the other side of the hump on the cemetery side, I noticed there's a drain back there. And it has a metal grate over it, and I can see the pipe goes in towards where this big hump is. And I'm assuming, because it's the lowest spot on that piece of property, and I know from speaking to Mr. Todd over there that the water would run down that part of the cemetery and build up, and there's no place for it to go. So the water has to be going in that pipe if it ever gets deep enough, and I'm assuming that it goes underneath that hump and it goes through our backyards, and the villa that I live in has some extra space between my villa and the one next door. And we think the pipe comes around and comes down and goes into our normal drain, which we only have two drains on the whole street. They're right at the bottom, one on my side of the street, one on the other. Then when you go across the street and follow it out to the DRA, there's two large pipes that are probably 12 or 16 inches in circumference. All the drain water that comes out of the villas, like spoutings, sump pumps, and whatever comes down the street, feeds into those two drains, including this pipe that comes back from the cemetery, and it all goes into that DRA. And we were concerned that everything is proper in that drain because the builder, who's Russo Builders, is working on the very last villa of the street. It'll be complete and he'll be gone. And we just want to know if everything's okay there, because once he's gone, then we don't know what would happen after that. And the second part of my question for you gentlemen is the street itself. And I'm sure that other developments maybe have similar situations, but being our development's considered private and we have the responsibility of our own street, by them building the villas over a period of years, even though Mr. Russo bought the properties out of bankruptcy, he tries to tell us when I have spoken with him casually. And it sounds like he has no intention of finishing the street or blacktopping it. That they're just going to leave it for the residents of the Villa Association. So there's 20 villas in there, and we're going to have to pay to build this street up because there's sections of the street where the initial road bed is 3 inches below the concrete curbing. And the water can't get up on the curbing to get down to the two drains that go back into the DRA, so it just lays in the street. And we know that he's going to finish this last villa and he's going to be gone. And if we can't, I mean, we were under the understanding that he would have the responsibility to finish the street when everything was completed. Because now they're still running some big trucks and heavy equipment. They've destroyed the street. I mean, there's places in there with just in little chunks like this, and it's one more winter, it's going to just totally fall apart. So that was my question.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to say, I was going to direct it to Mark.
Yeah.
I know that it was an issue brought up to.
Yeah, briefly, Mr. Russo is not party to the subdivider's agreement with the city. That was entered into by the original subdivider, but that agreement is binding upon the successors and assigns of the parties. So I've given the city manager my opinion that Mr. Russo, he can finish the last house and be done, but he is bound by the terms of that agreement to complete both the paving that you're describing, as well as correct any deficiencies in the drainage pursuant to the plan that had been submitted. There was a plan submitted relative to paving and draining with that development. When Mr. Russo obtains that development, he becomes the successor to the agreement with the city to complete all of that. And we're going to hold him to that. I don't know where the city manager is in that process, but that's been my opinion to the city manager, is we have that agreement, we can enforce that agreement. It doesn't matter if Mr. Russo finishes the last house. Nothing magical about that. Our subdivider agreement doesn't terminate at that time.
Have we told him, Mr. Russo, that?
Yes, and coincidentally, I have an appointment to meet with Mr. Russo tomorrow to go over the drainage issue with him.
Okay.
Because we heard that possibly there was from a previous meeting that there might have been a consulting firm coming in to take a look at the DRA. Because we, the residents who live there, don't know if everything's proper or not.
The city engineer, MS Consultants, would have done that.
Yes.
But they would have calculated the original requirements, etc.
Yeah, there was a plan submitted when the development was being proposed, which was approved by our city engineer. And it showed the outline of the retention basin and all of the pipe configurations. And my meeting with him tomorrow, as part of my visual inspection, is that when they built the homes along the back or the east side of the property, it looks as though they encroached upon that area that was a retention basin.
Correct.
And that's what our purpose of our meeting tomorrow is, to discuss that. He was of an opinion that they had not encroached upon it, so.
Dennis, so the two things you were concerned about, one is the clock isn't going to run out on him,
Okay.
and he's accountable,
Yes,
and the city will hold him accountable.
correct.
He's already having a meeting with him tomorrow, so.
So those are the two concerns
That's very good.
that you feel more comfortable.
Now, that's not going to say that it's going to go easy. Mr. Russo may say, I'm not on
Right,
this
his
fees.
fees,
I know it.
And then, but so do I. So do I.
And most
We
likely that's,
understand.
could happen.
But we'll take action to enforce our agreement. We have an agreement.
Okay, that's all, because otherwise it's a really big burden on the
I
residents.
understand.
And there's only 20 of us.
That's why they
We have to
signed.
pay to
Right.
fix our own street.
Right.
That's, your street might be a private street, but it still has to be constructed pursuant to the plan submitted, and it's not.
Okay.
And the drainage has to be completed as the plans were submitted, and it's not.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.